Nano Machine. Bai, Ang Hongweolja. Chapter 131. Hidden Underground Treasure, Part 1. So I can't put him down with the white dragon blade. Yoan narrowed his eyes. Beko wasn't a target he could deal with by using the butterfly blade dance. Yoan then placed down his blade and Beko became excited. No one can defeat the poison man. As Beko stepped one step forward to finish it, Yoan then brought the white dragon blade up in the air. The blade then shined with blue force chi. Fool. So, you will fight to the end? Beko then focused poison into his both hands and charged. That's when Yoan struck the blade into the ground. As the blade struck into the ground, all debris and clouds kicked up with a loud explosive sound, clouding everything around Beko and Yoan. Foolish tricks. Beko knew where Yoan was already. As Beko charged in, with the sound of something being stacked up, Beko felt terrifying demonic energy from within that he had never felt until now. What is this? This was something Beko felt when he met his eyes with Chun Yoan right before he was struck. This is dangerous. I must attack first. Beko felt mysterious terror from the demonic presence and charged in. The poisonous energy within his hands formed to that of a giant demonic hand and charged forward. And something unimaginable happened. The poisonous attack that he was certain no one will be able to defend was countered with countless sword strikes. What is this? Beko then saw the black sword he had never seen glowing with black light, that stormed through and came upon him. I have to defend it. Beko brought up his entire poison to form a defensive barrier around him, but it was no use. Aorarg. The black sword struck into his blood points this time and Beko screamed in pain. The powerful sword cut through Beko's body and covered it with blood. It's a scream. What's happening? I can't see anything from the dust cloud. All the people heard was screaming coming within the dust cloud. As the dust began to settle down, they saw someone moving barely. Wait. Is that Elder Beo? He's drenched in blood. The entire body was full of blood, but the clothing surely looked like that of Beko's. And when Beko's body was revealed clearly, everyone turned silent. They were all in so much shock that they forgot what to say. Beko, who moved aimlessly and eventually fell down, had no head. Blood poured out like fountain from the neck where it lost its head. And when the dust died down, all people of the academy saw Chun Yoan holding on to the head of Beko. Poison came up as a dark cloud rose up from the blood. Beko's head had his eyes wide open with terror and shock, distorted with pain. And Yoan felt the heat coming from the black sword that turned back to his arm guard. I didn't think the sword force of the sky demon would have gotten so much stronger. Yoan had unleashed the third formation of the sword force of the sky demon. With the powerful black sword, dark force chi that was created with ominous dark energy and the powerful formation of the sword force, it allowed Yoan to unleash a powerful attack. It was so powerful that not even the Elder Beo who had become the poison man can defend against. It's not there yet. But Yoan wasn't too satisfied. He was able to test himself through today's duel. I have to become more powerful. His original goal was to defeat Beko with just the butterfly blade dance. He had gained many experiences through 3 years of battling with many avatars, but he had earned new things in today's fight against the poison man. Just like Beko, who had his secret weapon, others will do too. Beko, with such powerful weapon, was not the strongest man in the cult, so meant that there were people at the cult who can fight Beko without the help of Nano. Mother? As Yoan looked down at Beko's head, he was reminded of his mother, Lady Hua. Will this settle at least some score of his mother's death? This is only the beginning. This was only the beginning. At the result that no one expected, it was Hubong who broke the silence. Master! And with that, all of Yoan's members began to shout in excitement. Until now, Yoan had fought cadets or princes who were at a similar level of experience and power. Yoan's members trusted Yoan but was ready for Yoan's loss and his death at this fight. But with not just defeating Beko, Yoan had killed him. Through his poison man state. Munku then wiped off the tear coming down on her face and thought. It felt like the world had crumbled down when she thought Yoan was dead, but after knowing that Yoan was safe, it made her heart pound heavily. Why is my heart pounding like this? She thought it was due to the clothing wrapped around her chest, but her face was blushed red. She did not know what this feeling was, so she ignored it. And she shouted loudly like other members. I can't believe that. He had become a monster. He cut off the head of the elder of the poison clan. So, the blood of Chun flows through him. Well, I am not so sure if it's only due to the blood. Instructors who watched above the stage were all shocked either. They thought, Yoan would not pass the 6th test and even were concerned that Yoan will die from this test. Nobody had thought Beo, infamous poison man who had massacred so many people, would end up like that. I didn't even get to challenge you yet and you have gone way too far up now. Ho Jincheng thought. He wanted to duel with Yoan after the yellow tag, but Yoan was now just too powerful. But there was something that concerned him. Chapter 132. Hidden Underground Treasure, Part 2. Well, whatever the case, this is now a declaration of war. The war was to start the moment Academy was to be finished, but now Yoan had cut off the head of one of the leaders of the 6 clans, so all the 6 clans were to now be wary of Yoan. But he used the poison to kill Chun Yoan under everyone's watch. Yoan had every reason to kill, as it was Beo who tried to kill him first. And with the witnesses present, there was no way this will come back to Yoan. But it was sure that the poison clan might do something. Chun Muyan, from the Wise clan, clenched on his fist so hard that his nails stuck into his fist and turned away. Prince. His members, who almost shouted with excitement from such an outstanding feat, quickly followed Chun Muyan out from the training ground. And just like everyone else, Li Hamming was also astounded. He cut the head off from Elder Beo with his poison man state. Li Hamming wasn't sure he himself would be able to do that. It was only 4 years. A mere boy without any knowledge of martial arts now had become so powerful that he was now on top 5 ranks of the cult. Are we really going to have the Lord who will succeed his advancement? It made Hamming come to chills. Soon, with the poison all fading away, instructors came up to the training ground to clean up Beko's body. It was the leader of the poison clan, so they needed to be extra careful. With Sima Yi's agreeance, Li Hamming stood up and shouted at Chun Yoan, who was standing on the training ground. Master Chun Yoan, congratulations on passing the 6th test. Wah. Every cadet cheered and roared with shouts. This was the first 6th test passed in 70 years. This was an outstanding achievement. Chun Yoan too smiled with this, and his members all ran up to him on the training ground. Ko Wonger, with his nose and eyes red from tears, shouted, Master! Congratulations! Congratulations! Do we need to call you an elder now? Haha. Ojong spoke teasingly and everyone laughed with excitement. And as every Yoan's members were rejoicing, Sima Yi came down from his stage and was looking for someone. Left Guardian, can I meet with my son before I go? Sure. You can. Sima Yi had to go out of the academy as his job to be a witness was done, but he asked Li Hamming to be allowed to meet with his son. Father. Sama Chuk also wanted to say goodbye to his father, so Sama Chuk quickly ran up to Sima Yi. You have grown well, my son. Sima Yi had heard that Chuk had passed the 5th test from Li Hamming. This was already a great feat that Sima Yi wanted to compliment his son of. And when they greeted with each other, Sima Yi sent a telepathic message to his son. Chuk, did you find a prince you want to side with during the competition? Oh, so you wanted to speak about that too? Huh? I had something to tell you before you go. Sama Chuk then seemed to be hesitant, so Sima Yi spoke first. Go ahead. Father. You told me to find someone from 6 clans, and I tried, but I'm sorry. I thought about it long and hard, but I want to side with Prince Chun Yoan. Before entering the academy, Sima Yi had explained about princes that Sima Yi wanted his son to side with. It was Chun Muyan and Chun Yuchan. These two were talented genius that were likely to become the future lord. But while spending time as a cadet within the academy, Sama Chuk found himself being interested in Chun Yoan instead. He hesitated due to his father's advice, but he didn't like Chun Muyan. And unlike Chuk's expectation, Sima Yi was smiling. I am proud of you, my son. Huh? You have the same thought as me. The reason Sima Yi spoke to Chuk was because he changed his mind after watching the 6th test. This was the first time someone passed the 6th test in 70 years. And with the result, it was certain that Yoan will now become the 12th elder at least. If Yoan, who was not even in his 20s, were this powerful, it was hard to imagine how powerful he will be in his later years. We don't need to side with 6 clans. The Samu clan was already one of highest-ranking clans along with the Demon Dragon clan. And Sima Yi, who was already an elder, didn't like the idea of being under the 6 clans. Prince who is not from 6 clans. This was a great ally to have. If Yoan was to become the heir, then it was sure to bring change to the cult from the current 6 clan system. I agree with your thought, son. Prince Chun Yoan is a worthy man. Oh, then am I to do what I want? Sima Yi similed. You may. Oh, and he might even become our future family, so make sure you look after him. Huh? Sama Jeffrowuned. It seemed his father was thinking of having his sister Sama Young as the wife of Chun Yo-won. An hour later at the front of the chief's office, Chun Yo-won had come to the chief's office with Lee Hamming. He had passed the 6th test, so he had to be given privileges. And before going into the office, Jin Chung and 2 other instructors followed, but they were told to wait outside for a moment. And when Yo-won and Hamming walked into the office, Lee Hamming unleashed the energy and cut out the sound going outside. Yo-won was surprised. Then Lee Hamming suddenly knelt down on his one knee and bowed politely at Yo-won. "Prince, you have done well until now. Congratulations on passing the Academy's 6th test." It was not his usual attitude that he did to every cadet. Chapter 133. Hidden Underground Treasure, Part 3. Chun Yo-won was shocked from the changed attitude of Lee Hamming. "I am not sure what this means, sir. You have passed every test of the Academy, so I must now address you properly as the rightful prince and the son of the Lord." Yo-won had passed all tests, so he was not a cadet anymore. All princes of the Lord had the right to become treated with respect, but he was only treated as mere cadet because that was the rule of the Academy. Chun Yo-won was still dumbfounded and Lee Hamming continued. "It was rule of the Academy, and I wasn't certain until now, so I apologize for just watching you until now, Prince." Yo-won wasn't sure what Lee Hamming was talking about. Lee Hamming then brought up his head and looked at Yo-won and spoke. "I am sure you are confused. Let me ask you frankly. Did you learn the founding of truth left by Father Chunma?" Yo-won became grim. He didn't think Lee Hamming will talk specifically about that. So he knew. He had used the sword force of the Sky Demon in front of everyone 2 times when he fought Ho Jinchang and when he fought the criminal from the evil force. That was the only sword skill he had that he can defeat his enemy at the time, and was sure no one will recognize it. "I am not sure what you are talking about." Yo-won decided to lie about it first. He wasn't sure if he can trust Lee Hamming yet, as he was the Lord's close advisor. Yo-won didn't even tell his secret to his members, so he couldn't just reveal to Lee Hamming yet when he wasn't sure if Lee Hamming was his ally or foe. "Oh, I see. It is certain you can't trust me yet." Lee Hamming thought for a second and bowed to speak seriously. "I, Lee Hamming, left guardian of the great Sky Demon cult, swear an oath to support Prince Chun Yo-won for the competition for the heir to the throne. As a proof, I ask you to hold my medal that shows me as a guardian." Lee Hamming took out the red medal from his pocket and gave it to Yo-won politely. It was the medal that proved that Lee Hamming was a guardian. "Left guardian, supporting me?" Yo-won was shocked. This was not just simple support being given from any other members. This was huge that will shock every cultist. "Please, take it." Yo-won hesitated for a second and spoke. "I am sorry, but I am not sure how I can trust you, a trusted advisor to the Lord." Guardians were those who always followed orders from the Lord directly. They were not allowed to join in the competition outright and were only allowed to support the Lord and the heir if chosen. So with that in mind, it was hard to believe what Lee Hamming was trying to do. This suspicion made Lee Hamming glad. He has become very careful. He is very worthy. Even if Hamming was in the same shoes, he would have been suspicious. Lee Hamming thought he needed to explain further. "You are right. I am left guardian. Technically speaking, I am not in a place to support anyone. But I have something I must prioritize above everything else." "What do you mean?" "We, guardians, are bound to accept one who succeeds the truth as a real lord." "You mean the truth left by Father Chunma, who has created our cult?" Lee Hamming wasn't lying. He took a deep breath and continued. "You must keep what I'm going to tell you as a secret. Guardian family protected and supported the Lord for the entire history of the cult. 3 families, divided up from Great Guardian, Left Guardian, and Right Guardian, were the founding families and always sided with the Lord, starting from Father Chunma to current Lord Chun Yujong. Unlike them, 6 clans weren't there when the cult first started. It started with 2 apprentices of Sword Demon about 500 years ago, but guardians were there since the beginning. Oh, wait. Right guardians were only born 500 years ago. They are shorter in their history. Oh, so Teacher's guardian family wasn't there from the beginning. This was because Right Guardian died 500 years ago, that required a new Right Guardian entirely. Not much know this. Guardians were one of few people who knew most secrets of the cult. And there is a secret that we Guardian families have kept it since 500 years ago. The sword art of the Sky Demon that every lord learns is not the real sword skill left by Father Chunma. This was shocking news. Yo-won was shocked. If what Hamming said were to spread, this was enough to dismantle the entire cult. Then you mean, the true sword skill that was taught to lords were stopped? About 500 years ago, the demonic cult did not have a lord to have many wives at the 6 clans to create successor. The lord at the time was given woman chosen by the dark fire within the giant altar at the shrine, woman who was called as the demonic lady. At the time, only the child born from the demonic lady was allowed to become the future heir, so there was no reason for a specific clan to rise in power. Chapter 134. Hidden Underground Treasure, Part 4. That's how it was for a long time until the day. The Lord of Demonic Cult was originally required to set out upon pilgrimage after becoming a new lord. Chunmuhi, lord from 500 years ago, was also required for this and had set out for pilgrimage after 5 years of becoming the lord. And in that pilgrimage, the worst incident within the history of our cult had happened. Every member who set out on the pilgrimage had come back as a corpse. That was when the right guardian at the time had died also, who didn't have any successor. This required a new right guardian. The death of one of the top 5 warriors of Wulin brought a shock to the cult or the Wulin alike. Who can kill the lord who was one of the top 5 warriors of the Yulin? Did you hear about the name, Blade God? Blade God? Yoan's eye became wide with shock. He wasn't familiar with a lot of powerful warriors of the Wulin, but he knew the name as a cultist. This was the only known person who Demon Sword, a legendary swordsman from the cult, couldn't defeat. They tied in the end, but Demon Sword had lost his right arm from that fight and had to be retired from battle afterward. Then did the Sword Demon fight Blade God for revenge? Yes. But that fight didn't happen right after. With the Lord being killed, a huge problem had brought upon our cult. The biggest problem was the successor. Chunmuhi had one child between the demonic lady at the time, but the child was a girl. And Chunmuhi, who couldn't have further child, had to leave for pilgrimage before it was too late, not realizing that it will be his death trip. With the death of the Lord, we had the problem of having no successor and losing the sword skill left by Father Chunma at once. The sword art of the Sky Demon was only taught with mouth and had no books. This was the worst case scenario for the demonic cult. And to solve this problem, the Elder Council had chosen Sword Demon, first elder at the time, as a vice lord at the time. They couldn't have 8 years old Chunmuhi's daughter as a lord yet, so they had to find an alternative. Fortunately, Sword Demon was talented in every way, not only in his sword skills. He had cleaned up and stabilized the cult very quickly. This was only because he had respects from all cultists. What Demon Sword wanted to solve fast after stabilizing the cult was to find the sword art of the Sky Demon back. He had experienced dueling the former lord, but he didn't know the breathing skill or the right flow, so that had no way to be restored. That's when for the first time, someone not from the Chun family had entered the prison cave where Father Chunma had left his secrets. Yoan, who knew the secret to the prison cave, was astonished. The prison cave was originally a place known that Father Chunma had left his secret to the truth before he died. Only members of the Chun family were allowed to enter at first, but they couldn't let the young girl to enter in, hoping to find that. And with the thought to take what's left in there, and create something better if that's not possible, Chunma was blocked with a huge obstacle. Everyone had entered the prison cave until now, but none had learned the founding of truth. Sword Demon failed it also. Why was that? It was possible to replicate the sword formation left by Father Chunma from the sword marking left on the pedestal, but it required breathing skill or the flow of energy to use it. So no one unlocked that secret. Many members of the Chun family had entered the cave, but none had unlocked the mystery behind it. Sword Force of the Sky Demon required the user to use the right breathing skill wrote on the shiny stone above the cave and the flow of energy hidden behind the poetry. It was after 3 years when the Sword Demon came out of the cave. After 3 years, Sword Demon had added his own understanding over the Sword Force of the Sky Demon and created new sword art of the Sky Demon. This was also very powerful, that didn't fall too far behind from the lost sword skill of the Lord, so every elder at the time agreed to teach it to the daughter of dead Lord. So the current sword art of the Sky Demon was created by Sky Demon then. This was something that Yoan did not know until now. This was the reason why there were sword markings left over the sword marking of Father Chunma on the back of each pedestal. But what he couldn't understand was why the Sword Demon, who entered to learn the founding of the truth from the stone, had damaged the pedestal with his counter sword skill. Sword Demon then moved all pedestals who had Father Chunma's finding into library floors of the Demonic Academy. I'm sure you too had seen the pedestal on each floor? Yes, I have. He couldn't lie about not seeing these, as these stones were placed at the middle of each floor. The heavy markings left on the back of each pedestal was left by Sword Demon himself. Why did the Sword Demon destroy the pedestal so much? He knew that this was due to Sword Demon's effort to counter the sword force of the Sky Demon. But there was no reason for Sword Demon, who was not even a member of the Chun family, to destroy the treasure left by Father Chunma like that. Sword Demon already copied down sword tracings that Father Chunma had left, made a book of sword art book already. Oh. So the damage wasn't just made out of whim. Sword Demon couldn't destroy the tracing without leaving a record of it, so he already had organized it before leaving his mark over it and had placed it at the Lord's palace. But without the breathing skill or the flow of energy, it was useless. But the damage left on the pedestal, it was inevitable in some way. Chapter 135. Hidden Underground Treasure, Part 5. The death of leader of the demonic cult was not something to be considered lightly. Demonic cult officially announced Blade God as an enemy and traced him down. The enemy was someone that no one really knew who he actually was. Only surviving cultists said the killer introduced himself as Blade God. That was our only clue. The Blade God who had killed Chun Muhi, the Right Guardian, and entire Guardian forces disappeared after the incident. Many cultists were dispatched to look for him, but they couldn't find a trace. It was 2 years ago when he reappeared. The place he appeared was the capital for the Force of Justice. It mountain where the Sorum Monastery was located, where all martial art had begun, that no evil force nor cult can go easily. And surprisingly, Monk Kongwon, one of another top 5 warriors of Wulin, was killed there. Death of Kongwon, a respected figure for all people of Yulin, brought a shock to everyone. All the Force of Justice began to search for this mysterious killer. Over 2,000 warriors from the Force of Justice searched through to find the Blade God, but was only left with over hundreds of deaths. How did he do that? It was after 2 years when the Blade God reappeared again. When the Blade God reappeared, he went after another top 5 warriors, the strongest warrior of the forces of evil, Yuk Jinkum. And because of the last incident where he was tracked, Yuk Jinkum's body was found 10 days after his death. What? So it was now apparent that Blade God was after warriors from the top 5 of Wulin. With 3 out of 5 being killed, Blade God's name spread through the entire land. People of Wulin was now considering the Blade God to be the most powerful warrior above all. The only one who left within those top 5 was the Chungming of the Martial Clan, and the Sword Demon. Sword Demon was certain that he will come for him. When Chun Muhi was killed, Sword Demon had checked on blade wounds left on the bodies. Sword Demon was a powerful warrior, but the blade tracing left on these bodies showed the Blade God to have unimaginable power, and was sure he can't defeat him. Sword Demon thought he needed to fight against something equal to, or stronger, and chose the tracing of sword force of the Sky Demon to do just that. Elder Council, who couldn't bear to lose even Sword Demon, agreed on allowing Sword Demon practicing his sword against the tracing left on the pedestal. Oh, so that's why there were counter sword skills. So, tracings were left by Sword Demon to train himself so he can fight against the Blade God. But what's still a mystery was that all sword movements that made up of counter sword skill was comprised of ordinary sword movements, which was not understandable just by listening to Li Haming's story. Sword Demon's guess was accurate. After exactly 4 years, Blade God had appeared at the demonic cult. So, he killed Chungming too. Yes. The Sword Demon was the last in line. Blade God, who now wielded the title of the top warrior of Wulin, had come straight to the castle of demonic cult and challenged Sword Demon. And the result was a tie, as known to everyone. It was a tie, but the Sword Demon had suffered great consequences. He had lost his right arm. What happened to the Blade God after that? After fighting against Sword Demon for 3 days and nights, he had disappeared and never returned. Blade God's appearance was over after that. There were rumors revolving around whereabout and what he had become after that, but there was only one thing that was certain. Blade God was the only one who had earned the top seat with the blade. The cult changed after that. Sword Demon, with losing his right arm, walked down from the seat of vice chief. And with that, Chun Muha, now 16 years old daughter of former lord, had become a new lord. It was the first female lord, and leaders of the cult took its chance and spoke to change the long ritual, as they will not be able to have successor through the old demon lady system. Chun Muha, who did not have much power as she was still just a young girl, couldn't object the elders. So, the ritual that continued for 300 years was finally disposed and brought the new clan system. Chun Muha took a total of 5 husbands, with 2 being apprentices of Sword Demon, who later founded Wise Clan and Sword Clan. Other 3 were apprentices of first to 3 elders, each from Current Blade, Poison and Lust Clan. Sword Demon, after retiring from his vice chief position, had created the Demonic Academy to train future warriors. The place where the sword demon chose to create the academy was the place where the prison cave and the demon seal cave, where Chun Ma's truth was hidden. Why did the sword demon choose this place above all other places? Lee Hamming, after finishing every story, looked at Yoan straight into his eyes. Do you know why I have told you this story? Yoan have thought about for a second and asked. Are you trying to say Sword Demon's purpose for creating the demonic academy here wasn't just to train future warriors? Chapter 136. Hidden Underground Treasure, Part 6. Lee Hamming smiled, proving that Yoan's answer was correct. Yes. He had two purposes. One of it was to find the real successor who will succeed the truths that Father Chun Ma had found through his swords. If that was the reason, why did he created the academy here? Yoan didn't seem to understand the reason, and Hamming continued to explain. When Sword Demon retired, elders now took control of the cult. Sword Demon had to be vice chief against his will, but he was still a loyal cultist. He couldn't succeed the sword force of the Sky Demon fully, but he believed that there will be a future member of the Chun family who will truly succeed the secret left behind Father Chun Ma. Sword Demon then believed he had to protect the prison cave and the demon seal cave, and created the academy so that no clans could think to have their hands on. Sword Demon had left works to guardians before his death. It was to tell guardians, who knew all the truth, to take turns to be chief of the academy, and when they find someone who succeeds the truth of Father Chun Ma, to help him to become the Lord. Sword Demon's hope had not come to true for 500 years, and it was now only an old legend that stayed within the guardians. And while I stood beside the Lord, I have seen his sword art of the Sky Demon countless times within the battlefield. Do you think I will not recognize the sword skill you used? When Lee Hamming first saw the sword force of the Sky Demon that Yoan had used against Ho Jincheng, he was so shocked. It was sword formation more accurate and powerful than the current sword art of the Sky Demon. He thought maybe this was the true finding of the truth of the sword left by Father Chun Ma, that Sword Demon had spoken of. But he couldn't reveal all this to Chun Yoan yet, as he couldn't be sure yet. There was a possibility that Yoan was just taught by Chun Yuzhong, the current lord. Let's keep an eye on him. And when he saw Yoan using the sword formation again against criminal from the evil force, he was able to confirm it. Chun Yoan was the true successor who guardians had waited for so long. And it was long wait until Yoan was to pass through the demon seal cave and pass the 6th test. Lee Hamming asked again in shaking voice. Let me ask you again, Prince. Did you succeed the truth of Father Chun Ma? I guess I can't lie then. Yoan, who now was told of truth behind the demonic academy, couldn't avoid answering. He then nodded at the question, and Lee Hamming's eye turned red and shouted while bowing down on the ground flat. Left Guardian Lee Hamming, at service of the true successor to Father Chun Ma. Chun Yoan was the person that guardians had waited for 500 years. He couldn't hold back his excitement and happiness. Yoan, who became surprised at such a reaction, suddenly became curious at one thing. Left Guardian, can I ask you one question? Of course. Can you stand up first? Yes, sir. Lee Hamming then got up and knelt on his one knee again. It was as if Hamming was considering Yoan as his master. Yoan felt weird to see Left Guardian, who only kneels toward the Lord, kneeling at him. You said there were two purposes for creating this demonic academy here. What is the other purpose? It's better I let you see it for yourself. Lee Hamming then brought back the energy barrier that cut out the noise and guided Yoan outside the office. Lee Hamming then guided Yoan to the library. Huh? The instructor who stood guard at front of the library was shocked to see Chief Lee Hamming's appearance and bowed. Chief, welcome. Instructor sung. Long time no see. Yes, sir. But why? It was weird to see Lee Hamming, who never visited the library, to come together with Chun Yoan. We are going down to the underground treasure room. Huh? Why, you mean, did he pass the 6th test? Lee Hamming nodded, and the instructor turned to Yoan with a shocked look. All other guards who were there were also shocked and turned to Yoan. It was only natural, as only those who passed the 6th test were allowed to enter the underground treasure room. As far as they know, there weren't any who had passed the 6th test in the past 70 years. The instructor, who had worked in the academy for less, thus had never had a chance to open the door to the underground treasure room until now. See, congratulations, Master Chun. I mean Elder Chun. If Yoan had passed the 6th test, it meant he had defeated one of 12 elders. He was a master just about a month ago, so it was surely very fast ascend to the top. Can you open our way now? Why, yes, sir. Lee Hamming asked, and the instructor guided them in. As they entered the library building, they turned to the right and found a hidden staircase down to the underground So, there was an underground floor. He was told before the 6th test about the existence of such a place, but it was true. As they walked down, there were thick metal door and 3 guards at Grandmaster level standing guard. Welcome, Chief. Chapter 137. Hidden Underground Treasure, Part 7. Open the door to the treasure room. All 3 guards flinched at Li Haming's order. They then turned to Yoan with a shocked look. They had figured they will never see the metal door being opened until their time was over at this place. This young man defeated an elder? Chun Yoan had a pale white face with coldness surrounding him. With the body restructuring, his skin had cleared up and blood points were now invisible that he just looked like a noble who didn't learn any martial art. If these guards who were super master level warrior couldn't feel anything at Yoan, it meant that Yoan was surely at the superior level. To think I would get to open this door. The leader of 3 guards took out the key from his pocket. Yoan then glanced over at the metal door that had 3 keyholes. One was held by instructor for taking care of logs, one was held by the guard and last one was held by Li Haming. So, you need all 3 keys to open this door. It was heavily guarded, even more so than the 5th floor to the library. I'll count, sir. 1, 2, 3. At once, 3 people placed their keys and turned in unison on the count of the guard. At that moment, the wall on both sides of the door trembled and the metal door divided up into half and opened the way in. It was closed for so long that the thick and ragged old metal door creaked severely as it opened through. Cold air began to seep out from it. Outside was always cold, but the interior of the library was usually warmer. But this place was different. It was very chilling. What is this smell? Leather? It was a weird smell. It smelled a bit rotten, but had mixed smell of medicine. A lot of smells were mixed, but it was not bad compared to the black liquid Yoan found from the Demon Seal Cave. The guard then lit the fire up on the wall and brightened the interior. Oh! Yoan gasped with astonishment. The wall of the interior had a faint glow of blue light. It's cold pearl stone. The instructor whispered to Yoan. The cold pearl stone was the stone that wielded coldness within it. This was why the interior of this room was cold. Follow me, please. Li Haming took up the fire and walked inside toward the corridor. As they walked in, they were soon at large 5-sided room. On the other side to the corridor was a large table also created with cold pearl stone, that had a human arm and leather that seemed to be human skins. What is this place? This treasure room was not something Yoan had expected. This is the second purpose. Li Haming then pointed at the table and offered Yoan to go closer. Yoan had cut down many right arms of princes, so seeing an arm wasn't all that weird, but seeing it preserved like that was what made him feel weird. As he walked towards it, the smell of medicine became stronger. Was it worked on to have it from being rot? It seems the arm or skins were processed to preserve it. And when Yoan got up to it, his eyes shook. This? He didn't know when saw from afar, as the arm was lifeless and bony, but the arm had full of scars. And all other skins also had sharp wounds over it. It was a scar left from a blade. Blade markings? Blade markings weren't simple. All of it had sharp energy within it. Yoan now had very advanced skills to simulate after coming up to the superior level. Yoan closed his eyes and saw a figure unleashing the unique blade skill that caused these injuries. Unlike the sword skills that had mixes of slash and stab, the blade only had formation made from slash, but it was very unique. This is impossible. How can such a blade skill exist? Yoan tried fighting it with his butterfly dance, but he wasn't sure if he can defend over then 2 formations. If he wanted to fight this, he needed counter sword skill of Sword Demon or the formation from Sword Force of the Sky Demon. This is like an entirely different level of blade skill. Yoan then opened his eyes again. Focusing longer might have put him in a trance. Li Haming then got up to him and spoke. Can you see what this is? Is it the right arm of the Sword Demon? The arm's hand was shaped as if it was holding someone. From looking from the fingers, it was sure to be holding a sword when it was cut off. Li Haming became astonished and spoke. Yes, that is correct. It is the right arm of the Sword Demon. And these skins? These are skins from the Lord and guards who were killed 500 years ago. Blade markings from the Blade God. So these arms and skins were preserved to leave the blade markings left by Blade God. Yoan was shocked to see this preserved at the underground floor to the library. Yoan then glanced around, and saw bookshelves at one side of the wall that had 3 books. True Demon Sword Art, 24 Demon Sword. Analysis of the Blade God's blade formation. The True Demon Sword Art was legendary sword skill left by Sword Demon. He had 2 apprentices, but was known to not giving them his own sword skill. But this was where Sword Demon's relic was at. He wasn't sure what other two books were, but these were certain to be left by Sword Demon also. Oh. Chun Yoan then realized the reason for this underground treasure room's existence. So, this place was to find the successor to the father Chunma, and also to find true apprentice that will succeed the will of the Sword Demon. Li Hamming then smiled. Yes. To be more precise, it is to train a future warrior who might be able to counter the blade skill of the Blade God. Chapter 138. Hidden Underground Treasure, Part 8. The Sword Demon did not take in any apprentices. Two warriors that he taught, sought after power and ambition, rather than the understanding of the sword. The reason for the Sword Demon teaching these two warriors was to train warriors who can protect the young daughter of the deceased lord. But these two eventually forgot their purpose and began to pursue their ambition. This disappointed the Sword Demon and he denied accepting these two as his real apprentice. You said the Sword Demon fought the Blade God and tied. The Sword Demon was the only one who survived after fighting against Blade God. He had lost an arm in result, but the Sword Demon put a stop to Blade God's undefeated record and made him disappear. There is one thing the Sword Demon spoke of before he died. And what is that? The Blade God disappeared in the middle of the fight. The Sword Demon said that he just said he tied because the Blade God disappeared. While fighting, the Blade God cut off the Sword Demon's arm and stopped the fight to disappear. The Blade God said he will return, so the Sword Demon waited 3 days for him to return, but he did not return afterwards. The Sword Demon was worried of Blade God's return as he had lost an arm and used up too much of his energy that made his martial arts to deteriorate. But even after 15 years when the Sword Demon died, Blade God did not appear. But the Sword Demon was worried that Blade God or his descendant might reappear and died. While worrying for the future of the cult. And 500 years had passed. I don't think Blade God's descendant will appear again. But I hope you can counter the blade marking left by the Blade God and continue on the will left by the Sword Demon. Ah. Li Hamming bowed again and Chun Yoan nodded. The Sword Demon, who was worried about the cult even in his dying bed, was truly a loyal cultist. Li Hamming then walked out of the treasure room with a smile. I will give you the key to this place. You can get out from inside without a key, but you will need this if you come back in. Unlike other library floors, this underground treasure room was free to enter anytime Yoan wanted. But Yoan did not need to return here or stay long time in this place. When Li Hamming left, Yoan quickly scanned all 3 books that was left by the Sword Demon. The Sword Demon's True Skill Book. I am lucky. The True Demon's sword art had the core elements of the Sword Demon's sword skill, that had unique sword movements that required flow of energy. It's better than martial art of 6 clans, but it was not much better than sword force of the Sky Demon nor the counter sword skill. Yoan thought maybe teaching this to one of his members who used sword might be a good option. But for the 24 Demon Sword, it was a new sword skill that the Sword Demon created by countering 3 sword force of the Sky Demon's formation. This is amazing. The counter sword skill was created to counter only the sword force of the Sky Demon, but this was entirely new sword skill created from that counter sword skill as a base that was very powerful. This sword skill was the creation that the Sword Demon tried to use it against the Blade God. Analysis of the Blade God's blade formation. This was record of analyzing the blade markings. Demon Sword have tried hard to counter the blade markings even until he died, but the recordings didn't see much advancement. It was only natural. Yoan then walked up to the table where arm of the Sword Demon and skins were left. I'm sorry to say this, but if he had fought longer, he would have lost. Every cultist admired the Sword Demon. Li Hamming too said he continues to follow the will of the Sword Demon, so Yoan did not say this. But the blade formation left in this preservation was beyond imagination. This is almost equal to the power of the sword force of the Sky Demon. The blade formation left by the Blade God was as powerful as sword force of the Sky Demon. The blade formation left on the arm was almost as powerful as fourth formation of Father Chunma. Let's check it. Nano, start the augmented reality. Activating augmented reality on the user site. Yoan's eye began to shake and white lines were created, showing augmented reality in Yoan's vision. Nano, can you scan the markings on that arm and create a 3D image? That is possible, Master. Simulate the blade markings left on the arm and let it fight against fourth formation of the sword force of the Sky Demon. Yes, Master. Activating duel simulation between 2 formations. White lines began to take shape into 2 human figures. 2 figures each with blade and sword then began to fight against each other. 2 powerful attack collided against each other and the result came quickly after. Just by one movement, the Sword Force of the Sky Demon's fourth formation countered Blade God's Blade formation, but was pushed back 3 steps. The accuracy of formation was better with Sword Force of the Sky Demon, but the power of Blade God's Blade skill was more powerful. This is amazing. Yoan was astounded. This gave him a conclusion. The blade skill left by the Blade God was as powerful as the Father Chun Ma sword skill. But if the blade marking left on the Sword Demon's arm was the last formation of this skill, then it was weaker than the Sword Force of the Sky Demon, and if there was something beyond this that was more stronger, then it was probably only martial art that might be that can counter Sword Force of the Sky Demon. Counter the blade skill? No. The Sword Demon left this to find someone who can counter this, but for Yoan, he had Nano who could simulate the formation left on the arm accurately. Yoan smiled. Blade skill equal to the Sword Force of the Sky Demon, this is best that can happen.